to you all about MLSA. Well, Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors is a community for students like us who want to use technology to solve real world problems with like minded people, establish themselves as mentors and leaders in their community, and amplify their impact. The global community of student ambassadors is the heart of the program, and student ambassadors get the opportunity to connect with other students around the world and solve various real life challenges while building themselves. With all of this, they also get the opportunity to build their technical and soft skills, which help them to succeed in their career. Isn't it interesting? Well, I feel privileged to be part of such a great community and connect with people who are passionate enough to create an impact in the community. Just a second, I guess someone is here. So yeah, now let's start with our session. So today's session is about Git and GitHub. Well, these two things are one of the most important things when you start your technical career, as they are not only helpful right now, but also when you'll go for jobs and all, then also there you will use them. Before starting the session, we'll first see what are we going to learn at the end of the session. So after completing this session, you'll be familiar with what is version control, what is GitHub, what are the some important terms in GitHub, introduction to Git, and some basic Git commands. I'll not keep it a very hard session. I'll introduce only the basic commands, and in the upcoming sessions, we'll carry on. After that, we'll also create our very first pull request. And with that, we'll start our journey for open source programs. I'm excited and let's get started. So, what is version control? Well, version control, also known as source control, is basically the practice of tracking and managing changes in your software code. Well, think of it, it's like nothing on its own. It's just an action of managing your files or the set of codes that you store in your local system. As a developer, as a developer environment, it is very important to get started with version control and to know what Git is, because version control is widely used in IT industries, but it can also be used by yourself at your home, and you can track any type of files, be it a spreadsheet, a Photoshop file, or just a simple text file. There are two types of version control system. The first one is the first one is centralized version control system. Well, centralized source control is a server and a client. The server is the master repository that contains all the version of the code. Now you must be thinking, what is repository? Wait, we'll clear it till the end. But what I was trying to say is that there are only two things in a centralized version control system: a master repository that contains all your code. Suppose it as a folder that contains all your files, and a client who is working on that folder. This consists of a centralized version control system. But this system has some disadvantage, as you can only work on a single repository at a time. Like you can see in this flow chart that there are three working copies, but they are only working on a single repository. Whereas the second version control system, that is distributor version control, yeah, just a second. The second version control system, that is distributor version control system, is quite different. The working is similar, but the only major difference you will find here is, instead of a single repository, which is in the central version control system. Here, every client has its own set of repository. It has their own copy of the entire history or versions of the code. Like I'll clear it. Like this is the flow chart which we are talking about. There are three copies: workstation 1, workstation 2, and workstation 3. Each one of them have their own set of repositories, which together report to a single repository, that is the server. Whereas in centralized version control, there were three copies, but all of them were reporting to a single repository. Therefore, distributed version control is far much better than centralized version control, as here we can maintain our own local repository in our servers, and we can clone them in our local paths and maintain them without relying on the central server. After this, we'll jump on the features of version control. Well, version control is quite important as it has some really amazing features. The first feature is tracking changes to your file. When you keep your files in a code folder, and suppose you have to make some changes, but just a second, there's someone. So yeah, I was saying that when you make some changes in a file and you want to track them, then it is only possible through version control system. As here, you can create checkpoints, you can track all the changes. A proper history is available of all the changes that you have made, because this process makes it quite simple for a user to go through all the changes that were made and to track the code much better. There is also one amazing feature, that is rollback. The concept of rollback, well, basically, if you have made some changes and you wish to discard these changes or you wish to go back to the previous file, this is possible with version control system. Therefore, it is easy to use. You can easily recover your files if you lose them by mistake, or you can revert back to the changes that you make. And with the help of version control system, you can collaborate with other people. Now that we are familiar with version control system, we can move forward to Git. But I want to introduce you to GitHub before moving on to Git, as I feel Git is little more difficult than GitHub. So we'll start with GitHub. Well, in your college, you must have heard from a lot of students, like they are saying they work on GitHub, they create repositories on GitHub, they store their files, code files on GitHub, they store their projects on GitHub. What is this GitHub? What is this cute little cat here? This is part of GitHub, right? So GitHub is basically a cloud-based hosting service for Git repositories. Now, before starting with GitHub, first we'll understand what is repository. Take repository as a folder, just like we have this folder in our computers. Like I'll show you. So yeah, like this folder we have in our computer, if this is hosted on a cloud-based service system, then it is called a repository. So yeah, GitHub is a cloud-based hosting service where all your folders are stored, and people from all over the world who have access to your account details, like who know your account, they can access your Git repositories and make their contributions. Like if someone finds there is some changes in your GitHub which should be made, they can make them. They can pull their request and make the changes. So in this way, they can contribute to your projects. But I feel we should. Yeah. So I guess it will be more clear if I'll show you what GitHub profile actually looks like. So this is the GitHub login. If you'll sign in to GitHub, I have already signed in. So this is the screen which will look like this. Now this is my profile. So yeah, this is my GitHub profile. This is not the actual profile that looks like it. I have customized it using some GitHub features. So this is all about myself. This is my social handles, the languages and the tools that I use. These are the stars that I have earned. I'll explain each and everything. What are stars, what are commits, what are pull requests. And these are all the repositories that I have right now. Some are forked and some are my own. And yeah, these are all the history of the contribution that I have made. So yeah, this is my profile. This is repositories. Now, repositories. I was talking about repositories. So yeah, again, just like I said, repositories are a folder. So think of them as a folder, just like your normal folder on your desktop. Repositories are folders on GitHub profile. And like this is one of the repository. Like this is one of the websites that I created, movie website. So this is a repository which contains all the files. These are the code files, index.html, this is CSS file, and this is JavaScript file. These all files are collected together in this repository called Movie Dekho website. So yeah, this is a README file which describes my project, all the tech stacks that I have used, how to use my project, and the live link for the project. Like this is the Moore website which I created, and this is the live link for the project. So now I'll introduce you to the issues. Well, issues are basically when you want to, like, suppose I have made this project and I find there is something which I'm not familiar with, or something which I'm not understanding, or something which is wrong. So I feel that I want to update something in this file. So I'll create an issue here so that the author, like in here, I'm the author. So if someone will create an issue, then I can see that what issue he's actually creating, and I can grant him access to create the changes in my repository. And then he can create the changes and pull the request. Pull request, I'll explain it further. Here we can see fork. Well, fork is basically if you want to like clone a copy of the repository on your local desktop system, then you use this fork. Like I'll show you. This is my profile, and like I have this project, web development project card. This is forked from another. This is not my repository. This is forked repository. I have forked it from Khushi Purvar's web development project card. So here is this fork. I have already forked, so it is showing that I have already forked. So yeah, you can fork a repository so that you can create a clone. Now, fork is a very good feature as if you fork a system, if you fork a repository, then you can create n number of changes without actually disturbing the original repository. Like I'll fork this repository on my system, and then I can do as many number of changes without actually creating any impact on this repository. And if I find these changes useful, then I can merge them through a pull request in the original repository. So let's come back on our PPT. So yeah, I have introduced you to repositories. There are two types of repositories. One is a private repository and second is a public repository. Private repositories are visible to the owner only, and public repository can be viewed by anyone. So if I have to make contribution to someone's repository, it is mandatory that his repository is public. Then only I can fork it and make changes. Let's create a repository. Like if you see this desktop, then there is a option new. So when I click on new, so then this screen comes creating a repository. You can add changes like templates also, but I'm keeping it simple. Now let repository name be demo repository. So I'm the owner of this repository, and this will be the name of the repository. You can add description also, like just for demo purpose. Now there are two options, public and private. As I said, if I want people to contribute in my repository or so that people can see my projects, then I'll keep this repository public. Or else, if you're working on your own project and you don't want to introduce it right now to the world, then you can keep it private also. Now we can also add a README file to it, but I'll skip it right now because it's just a demo repository. And now I'll create. Acha, one more thing. There are license also, like you can choose license like MIT license, but it is not necessary right now here. We are only doing the basics. So we'll create a repository. Now these are some of the command lines and which we can wish, but I guess it's not required right now. So if I'll go back to my system, then I'll see just, yeah, the repository is now available on my system. Like if you log in from your GitHub profile and you will open my profile, then you'll see that there is a repository created as demo repository. So yeah, this was all about repositories. Now, whatever code files we are creating, we'll store it in the repository, and through that, we'll access each other's repository or each other's projects. Now, there is one more important term known as star. A star is basically nothing but just like you use a bookmark tab, like here we use a bookmark tab. So just like that, star is also a bookmark of GitHub where you can, like, I have, if I start this web development project card, so that later on when I come back, I can, these are the important repositories which I want to look at or which I want to contribute to. Just a second. Mhm. So yeah, this was the concept of star. Now that we are familiar with some terms, we'll start with our introduction to Git. First of all, what is Git? Git is a free open source software distributed version control system which is used for tracking changes in our computer. Like like we have introduced ourselves to version control system. So Git is nothing but it is a version control system in our desktops where we can track all the changes made to our source code. And the best part is it is free and open source, like anyone can use them, and it is quite easy to use. If you get your hands on some basic git commands, then you can have a good start. The features of git is, you can track, again you can track your history, you can manage your projects with repositories, it is free and open source. You can clone a project. We'll clone a project right now and I'll show you how this all works. You can also create backups so that by chance if you lose your files or anything, then you can track them back. And it also supports collaboration. Again, like I said, open source programs, you can participate in them by learning Git and GitHub and creating your own projects and contributing in others projects, which is quite good actually. Well, also there's one more important feature of branching in Git, which we'll discuss later on. So yeah, these were the features of Git. um, Now I'll show you like a live demo, like what was before and after Git. So suppose when Git was not introduced, then before Git was all the history of centralized version control system. Like if you see this example, just a second, someone is there. If you'll see this example, then before Git, developers used to submit their code to the central server, just like in case of central version control system, where all the developers do not have copy of their own. They have to submit it to a centralized server, which was very bad because no communication was there between developers. And if any changes were made in the source code, then it was unknown to the other developer. Like if three people are working on a source code and suppose I make some changes, then the rest of the two people would have no idea about what the changes were made, as they do not have their own copies and they all were reporting to the central server. So only the central server was knowing that what changes were made, but the developers had no communication. But after Git was introduced, everything became smooth. As Git is a distributed server, so every developer has an entire copy of their own code in their own local systems. So any changes made can be tracked by the other using Git commands. And through this, regular communication between developers were there. So yeah, after Git, a lot more things have been smooth, and it is actually quite useful in IT industry. Therefore, we need to learn about Git and GitHub so that we do not face any difficulties in future. Now I'll introduce you to Git workflow. So yeah, Git workflow. This is the most important part of this presentation, as if you are clear with this, then there will be no problem. You'll understand each and every term. So what does Git workflow describes? The first thing is the cloning operation. For working on a project, you have to clone it in your local desktops, in your local systems. So first is you clone and work copy. Then you update the operation. Suppose I clone a project and I have to change the background color in that copy, or I have to increase some files. So I'll update. This is known as update operation. Here you will modify the copy, review the changes, like if any changes are there, you can update them, you can modify them. After that, you have cloned the copy, you have updated the copy, you will push the copy back. Like I have cloned the copy, but now I want the author to make these changes in the actual, because what changes I have made is in the cloned copy, but I want all these changes to be made in the actual copy. So I'll push this clone copy in the actual copy, that is committing changes. I'll push it. Then after pushing, the author will see the changes. If he wants any kind of, he'll review the changes. If he want any more further changes made, he'll communicate with me. And in that process, if there are something like he says that change this file or edit it, so I'll do that. And after that, he will successfully merge my cloned copy in his original copy, and I'll make a contribution. So I guess this flowchart is clear. I'll again repeat it. First, we'll clone a copy. Like, first we'll clone the copy in our desktop. Then we'll update it. That is modify or review the changes. After that, we'll push it in the original copy. The author will see if any kind of changes need to be made. He'll review it. And after that, he'll successfully merge my copy. Sounds simple, right? But before actually implementing this, we'll create our own pull request. I want to make you understand, like, many of you must be thinking that is Git and GitHub same? Then I'll tell you, no, they are quite different. Git is basically a version control system that is installed in your local systems, whereas GitHub is nothing but a Git repository hosting service. It is basically a cloud-based hosting service. Like, all the repositories on which you are working in Git are hosted on GitHub, so that the world can see what all projects and what all repositories are you working on. Through Git, we can't communicate with different people from different worlds, but GitHub is like just like your LinkedIn profile, where you show your achievements, and GitHub is something where you show your repositories and projects. So this was the basic difference between the two. So yeah, now we'll start with the installation of Git. So if you all are on your laptops, I'll request you all to just like, you won't be able to copy. I'll just type in here, get install. This first link, you'll just click on this, and you can download it for Windows, Mac, or Linux, on whichever OS you're working. So it is already downloaded in my system. So I'll not like 64-bit. So yeah, this is the Git file which you'll open it, and there will be 7 to 8 steps regarding that checking and verification. So keep it all, don't accept it, just accept it and just download the server. I'll wait for 2 minutes so that you all can download, because after that we'll start with Git commands. We'll start at 5:30. I'll request you all to please download Git in your Windows. All right, so I hope you all have downloaded Git in your PCs. So now, let's come back to our repositories. Like suppose I'll clone this repository in my system. So this is the forked copy. This is the original copy is this. Now remember, while cloning a repository in your system, you do not have to clone it from the original copy. Rather, you have to clone it for the forked copy. So here, from the code option, I'll just copy this link. Now, if you have downloaded Git, you can open Git Bash terminal or VS Code, anything. I'll normally use the command. I'll normally use the terminal, Windows PowerShell. So first I'll do cd desktop so that we are on desktop. Now I'll for first now let's come back to the git commands. The first command is git version to check if your version of git is installed successfully. In the command prompt we'll write git version and it will show that something like similar will appear on your screen. This means that you have successfully installed Git in your PCs. So this was the first command to check if your Git is installed successfully in your desktop. Now we have to enter a username and an email address in our Git terminal so that whatever changes are we making, the person who is checking the history or who is tracking, he can get to know that Muskaan Mishra has made these particular changes. So like I have already installed Git in my PC, therefore if I'll do this like git config global user dot name. Then it is showing Muskaan Mishra as I've already done these steps before. Similarly, if I'll do git configure global user dot email, then it will show my email address also. So you have to set up these details in your Git bash terminal so that in future whenever you use Git and you make any kind of changes, your changes can be tracked. Now we are clear with these two commands. Now it's time to clone the repository in our desktop. So I have just copied this link. I have to clone web development project card in my desktop. Again, I'm saying do not copy, do not clone the original repository. Rather, first fork it in your GitHub accounts and then copy it. So I've just copied the link and our next command is git have to clone. So git clone and I'll just copy paste the URL. So yeah, you can see that it is cloning that repository in my desktop. So if we'll just shut down all this, so you'll see that a folder named web development project card, which was not present earlier, is now cloning in my desktop. It will take some time as it's quite a huge folder, but once it's done, we'll start forward. All right, so as you can see the PowerShell, it has updated all the files. So if I'll click this folder, we can see all the projects. These are the mini projects, and even here my projects are also there. So we can see that all the projects that were originally hosted on the GitHub account are now cloned on my desktop. So now all these projects like calculator, coin toss app, loan calculator, etc., are all cloned on my desktop. So these are the clone copy. Now, if I'll do any kind of changes in them, it will not affect the original copy, as again, it is a clone copy. So now we'll come back again to our terminal. And if we do like go in this folder, we'll do. So yeah, now we are in the folder. Now if our next git command, we'll move on our next git command, that is git status. So first of all, we'll check if any kind of changes are made. And right now it will say no changes as we haven't done anything yet. So if you can see, your branch is up to date with origin master. So now what is master? What is branch master and all this stuff? So basically, if you'll see here, master is the default branch in many Git repositories. Like when you create issues and when you contribute in open source programs and you create their issues, then there are two types of branches, master branch and the issue branch that you created. But here we haven't created any issue. So if we'll do git branch, then it will show only single branch. That is, we are currently on the master branch. So yeah, our next command was this one only, git branch, to check the branch. Here we have only single branch, that is master branch. Now let's make some changes. Suppose I am creating a file, a text file, demo.txt, and like I'm creating hi, this is a file we are learning git commands. Yeah. And we save the changes. Oh, just a second. I have named it wrong. So this is a file. And now what I'll do is I have to add this file as a contribution in this folder. So I'll open the folder and I'll add this file in this folder. So now you can see that we have added our demo file in this folder. Now, if we again do git status, then you can see that we have an untracked file demo.txt. Now, what does untracked file means? Untracked file means that we have included this file in the folder, but it is just a second, someone is there in the lobby. So yeah, untracked file means that we have added this file in our folder, but it is not yet committed. Like it is there, but it is not yet committed to be like if we contribute it, then we have to first add it. So if I want to add this file in git add, and now it is added in our web development project card folder. Now if I'll again do git, then you can see that it is now tracked. Earlier it was an untracked file, but now you can see this green file, new file, demo.txt. So yeah, this was our again another command that was to add the untracked files. Yes, to add the untracked changes made in the file, we'll do git add dot. So now that I have made a change in my folder, now I want to commit this change. Like I'll show you, I want to commit this change in the folder. Like I have to create a pull request, and for that first I have to commit it with a message. like I have made these changes, and how should the author know that what changes are made? So I'll add this command git commit brackets. I'll added a new file demo.txt. This is the message that will reflect to the author that a person named Muskaan Mishra has added a new file demo.txt in the folder web development project card. Now you can see it is showing that in the master branch, as only master branch was there, so the files are added directly to the master branch. So a new file was added demo.txt, one file changed and one insertion. So we can see that we have created demo.txt. Now we'll go back to our um, GitHub profile, and we can see that to create a pull request here, we have to first command, like we have to add a command to push it to our master branch. So we'll do git, like yes, we can see that our file is added, but now we want the author to see these changes in the GitHub profile. So we'll use our command git push origin master to push it in the master branch. So we'll do this git push origin. And now you can see that it is adding the file in the forked copy in my GitHub, and it has added it. So yeah, if I'll go back to my GitHub profile now, I can see that I have made a change, and now I can open a pull request. So if I'll click on this, open a pull request, and you can see I have added a new file, like added a new file 2 minutes ago. I have committed this 2 minutes ago, and these were the changes that I have made. Hi, this is a demo file. We are learning Git commands. So from here, I can create my pull request so that this contribution can be made and my changes can be merged in the original repository, that is in this one original repository. So I'll create a pull request. Here I'll write added file demo.txt. Here we can write all the, like I have not created an issue here. If I would have created an issue, then I can write the issue number, the type of changes that I made. Like I have added a new project. So I'll do this. Then I have not used any of the tech domains here. So this is all for the GSOC contribution. That's why all these things are written here. But you can do accordingly. And then I'll create a pull request. So now a pull request is created, and the original author, that is Khushi, she'll see that someone named Muskaan Mishra has created a pull request, and she has added some particular files. And then you can see here a pull request is open. You can see this added file demo.txt in the folder. Now she'll review it. Although it's a demo file, she'll get to know it. But if I have also contributed to some various projects, so they'll click on here, they'll review if any kind of changes need to be made, like if they are if they have verified and it's all good to go, then they'll successfully merge my pull request. Else they'll tell me that, see, like some checks haven't completed yet, because again it was a demo file. If everything is good, then they'll just close my pull request and merge it into the main branch, that is main folder web development project card, and I have successfully made my contribution. So yeah, what we basically did right now was, first of all, we created a pull request using the git commands. We cloned the copy in our desktop. We made some changes. We added file. We committed the file. We tracked the file, and then we pushed it into the master branch or main branch, one and same thing. And then we have created the pull request, and now the code will be reviewed by the author. If there are any changes, then they'll update me with the same, and when all the changes have have been made successfully and they are satisfied with the project, they'll merge the pull request. And in this way, we have successfully created our pull request. Now I'd love to show you what contributions I have made. So like I'll again open this. Like recently I made a contribution. I'll show you. Just a second. Yeah, you can see this was the issue 1085, which was successfully merged in their main branch, and I have created this website. So if I'll click on this website link, so you can see this was the website which I made. It was basically a gym landing page. So I made it using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then all these were the type of changes that I made. These were the domains I used project using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And these were all of the checklists that I have performed. And these were the screenshots. In this way, I have contributed in this project. Now, when you are familiar with all of this, then you will come on the topic of what is open source programs. Well, what I did here, whatever contribution I made here, what was all for open source programs. So basically, open source programs are nothing but they are projects which are run by some authors where we can make our contributions, we can add various projects, and it is basically a community based program. And it's not necessary that you should have various coding skills to contribute in these open source programs. If you know how to edit a file, if you can add some, like, in the starting of this program, I knew nothing about HTML, CSS. So I used to update their README files. README files are basically the files, as I told you, where we get to know about the project, like what is this project about. So I used to modify the fonts and all. And slowly, when I started learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I created my own projects and I added them in their repositories. So whatever knowledge you have, technical skills you have, you can definitely take part in these open source programs, and it is very great way to connect with community and to pay a contribution to the community. Now, here are some of the various open source programs which are conducted throughout the year. The first one is Google Summer of Code. Then there is Digital Ocean Hacktoberfest. There is MLH Fellowship. There is Girl Script Summer of Code, in which currently I'm enrolled, and many more. So I'll show you what Girl Script Summer of Code looks like. So, yeah. Yeah, this is the official website for Girl Script Summer of Code, which is again an open source program by Girl Script Foundation. And here I just enrolled, and anyone who is enrolled, they get selected in this. And we just like, this is the leaderboard and all the contributions. Number of PRs means number of pull requests. So yeah, number of PRs mean number of pull requests, and these are all the GitHub usernames. That's why I said GitHub and Git learning Git and GitHub is very important, as through these you can contribute in various number of projects and connect with community. And these are the scores. Even I am on the leaderboard. I'll show. So yeah, if you see this, yeah, this. I'm here, 156th rank, and I have made 3 PRs and total of 115 points. So yeah, if I'll click on this, then my GitHub profile will open. Similarly, there are GitHub profiles of various other people also. You can connect with them, contact them, and contribute. You can. it's not necessary that you should have some really good coding skills to contribute in them. Even I knew nothing, but when you connect with people, like I've again connected here in Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program, I've connected with a various number of people who are like very talented, and with their help, and we help each other, and with their knowledge and all, we contribute in all these types of programs and make it a great success. So yeah, that was all about open source programs, and I wish you start participating in these programs as they are very good, and it's a great way to start your tech journey. Well, that's all for today's session. Thank you for attending the session, and I'll mail your certificates. I'll email them or I'll send through WhatsApp. And yeah, that was all. And I hope you were little bit familiar with GitHub. And this was not the only session that I'm conducting. I'll conduct further sessions in future where I'll like these are not the only git commands. There are many git commands, but these were the basic git commands, and in future we learn more git commands. So yeah, thank you so much for attending the session. I hope it was a good session. Thank you. You can start leaving. Just a second.